Welcome to session 2 of Green by Design. We have some new folks joining us tonight. So I just want to let everyone know that we're going to send all the recording links and resources in one email after all 3 sessions have finished. Everyone that attends the entire session will receive a certificate for each evening. We are offering AIA credits for the class for those attending once every 3 years. This course is not registered for GBCI CEUs, but there is a way to self-report, so don't worry about that. If you have any questions during the presentation, please put them in the Q&A box as the chat feature is not enabled. We will answer your questions after each presentation. Feel free to use the reaction buttons to send them thumbs up, hearts, surprise faces, etc. throughout the meeting to let us know how you guys are doing out there. I'm very pleased to introduce is Christopher Charles. He's a conservation program specialist at Austin Water. He creates and manages landscape rebate programs for the Water Conservation Office at Austin Water and educates other city departments and the public on water conserving landscapes. Take it away, Chris.
Thank you, Pat. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Like Pat said, I've been working in Austin Water for quite a long time now, almost 12 years now, doing water conservation work. And this is something that I love doing, but we're going to be talking a little bit, not so much as far as water conservation, but we're going to add a little bit of water quality discussion in here and talk about sustainable landscape planning. So if I want to go ahead and start off with a couple of questionnaires just to see, just get a feel. I know it's hard with this virtual meeting to get a hold of, get a feel of who I'm talking to. So these questions are going to help out. If you don't mind putting up that first question. So what is your current landscape watering style? A lot of times I'll go out into the public and I'll be talking to somebody about irrigation systems, and I don't realize that only 1 or 2 people have automatic irrigation systems. So go ahead and let's see how many people use automatic irrigation, or if they use a hose end sprinkler. That means tying up a hose to one of those oscillating devices, or if they just go out with a gun, spray gun with a handheld hose, or if they don't water at all. I know a lot of people, they don't water. So we do have, well, I mean, I think there's some people still trickling in. That's why I wanted to do these questions first. We do have quite a bit of people, almost a third of the audience with automatic irrigation systems. That's I'm not going to shame you. There's no shaming in having automatic irrigation. It is a very nice convenience. It is however, in fact, the one device that uses the most water inside or outside the home. So we will be talking a lot about that today. The second question we have: what is most important when creating a landscape? And these are sort of generic, but as far as when you think about, you know, investing money into a landscape or changing it, do you think about the environment, you know, how or the ecosystems? Are you know, there's a lot of talk now about natural habitat landscaping and good for the environment, or are you just looking for something that's low maintenance, something that you just, you know, set it and you can forget it, and of course you're going to have to do something every 2 or 3 months, but you're not going to be mowing it every week? Functionality, you know, are you thinking about that? You know, if you have some children, are they going to be using it in the backyard space more than the front yard space? Are they going to be using it equally? And of course, you know, is beauty what you're looking for? I know a lot of people with the pandemic, they were looking outside their backyards or front yards in their home offices, and they really want a nice landscape so they can look out the window and see, you know, the hard work that you put in, and other people can see that as well. So we'll go ahead and see what the results are. So, oh, good. We have a lot of eco-friendly people here today. That's awesome. I would imagine that would be the case for green building. So I do see that functionality is plays a role. So we'll talk about that as well. So the last question I have here, and this one we changed up a little bit. Would you be willing to spend a little bit more money, let's say 10 to 15% more on your landscape, if you knew there was an environmental benefit, right? So instead of buying those inexpensive plants at the home improvement stores, would you go to a specialty nursery to buy, let's say, plants that are native and eco-friendly? That's basically what we're looking at. And it's not just plants. A lot of people will sell different products, be it organic compost or mulch or something like that. It might cost a little bit extra than what you find at your big box stores. All right. That's what I want to hear. You're in the right place. This is going to be a good talk for you, and I hope we get lots of Q&A in the box there, the Q&A box there, so we can answer that at the very end of the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Hopefully the people that are trickling in are all here. We are going to see how we get this. Talk about sustainable landscaping. You might have heard it by other words, xeriscaping, nativescaping. We use WaterWise here in Austin for Austin Water. Smartscaping, I think A&M uses Earthwise landscaping, but we don't call it xeriscaping. That's something totally different. Whatever the name, we are trying to develop landscapes that support natural ecosystems and conserve on resources. The basic principles that we were talking about, and these are the term xeriscape came from Denver Water, dry scaping, right? And these are the principles that are part of that. Planning, design, soil amendment, efficient irrigation, appropriate plants, mulch, turf alternatives, and we'll go into that a little bit more as well, and maintenance. But we are going to tonight we are going to focus on plan and design, what you need to look at before you start going out and buying all your materials. As far as turf alternatives, you might have seen things about as far as you can see that in this photo here, that you see how they put a little bit of that stone there, and maybe some people will put artificial turf. We're really looking, as far as turf alternatives, when you see that, we're looking at maybe using some native grasses or ground covers. We're trying to stay away from rock and artificial turf. And I'll go through that in a little bit. So some environmental challenges. You got to understand the local climate. For some people, Austin's a brand new city. All you know is that there's so many allergens right now. But no, we need to really think about what our climate is, how much rainfall we get. Look at the temperatures, the soil. What is this urban heat island thing that everybody's talking about here in town? And of course, we always want to take care of our rivers and streams, so we always focus on water quality when we design landscapes here and around Austin. So this was just showing you how vast amount of rain Texas gets. Houston getting 50%, Marfa getting 50 inches, Marfa getting around 15 inches, and then Austin's right in the middle. One interesting thing is that Austin gets around 34 inches of rain a year, and Seattle, everybody thinks Seattle being a wet town, gets 38 inches per year. The difference is we get all of our rain like in maybe 3 or 4 big storms a year. get these 3 to 4 inch rains, while Seattle usually gets a consistent amount of rain each year, which is good for their watershed and water supply. Temperatures. A lot of people will go and look at the cold hardiness when they're buying plants. Will it survive the temperatures here? I just want to let everybody know that plants also have a heat hardiness. You can't plant some of those northern plants here in Austin. What I see a lot is people trying to plant like hostas. Yeah, they do great in Michigan, but they're not going to be doing good here in the Texas heat. So really look at the temperatures that if you're from out of the city, even if you're from Dallas or even from the Valley, the plants that you're used to might not grow here. So you might want to look at temperatures when you're doing your landscape. Okay, another thing to look at is soils, and this Austin area soils are, they're just notorious for being shallow, poor, and hard to manage. But that's not to say that you're not going to, that might be on the west side of Austin. The east side of Austin will have much thicker soils, more clay-like soils, and you'll have, a easy time digging and whatever it might be. But here you can see that on the west side of Austin, it's really, there's a lot of karst formations, a lot of limestone, and you really need to take that into consideration. That's better. Urban heat island. This is something that you might hear now and then. Austin's really big on this. What happens is, the sun is baking down on these impervious surfaces, including buildings, and it creates a hotter temperature in the center of the city, opposed to outside, in the outer rim of the city where there's more trees and forest and parkland. You can see here, I'm sorry, I'm not going to use my pointer on here, but this is basically Austin. And you can see some of these red streaks going down. You can see maybe South Lamar, south of the river, I-35, a streak of red right down the middle there. And then, of course, the cooler temps are in the older neighborhoods away from the streets where there's nothing but residential, lots of mature trees. So, are you in a cool zone or in a hot zone? That's basically this infrared imagery that we have here. Water quality, I said we mentioned that. We really want to protect our streams and rivers. We also want to make sure that that water does go through the soil and infiltrates instead of having erosion issues. And then, the pollutants as well. We'll be talking about fertilizer later on, and how we don't want that in our creeks and our rivers as well. So, some of the solutions that we have for landscaping, as far as looking at everything that we talked about previously, is to develop a smart design. I'm not asking you to be landscape architects, but really think about the things that matter to you, that matter when you go out into your landscape, and think about how you can environmentally better the situation on your landscape. Keeping water on the land is always important. A long time ago, the thing was to gutter that water, shoot that water down your driveway into the street where it's not going to do any damage to your property. That's an old way of thinking. Now we do want that water to drain away from your house, but we want to try to slow the flow as much as possible. Consider soil amendments. We'll talk about that a little bit. Use native and adapted drought tolerant plants, create cool spaces, and reduce lawn that is not being used. If you using your lawn, then yeah, please maintain it in a responsible way with the type of maintenance that doesn't do damage. So excuse me. So right here, as far as landscape planning and design, the city has lots of resources. In particular, growgreen.org. This is a website you can go to that's put on by our watershed protection department, and they're all about sustainable landscaping. They have little templates that you can use. You might not be able to find all the plants that are in these templates, but Denise Delaney over at Watershed does a great job putting these out and updating the plant guide. Always look out for your site and soil conditions. If that requires maybe having to go and get your your soil tested. I know that A&M offers a service where for a little bit of money, you can mail it to them and they'll tell you exactly what kind of soil you have, and whether it be sandy loam or heavy clay. Also think about the land use, or like I said before, will children need to use it, or pets? Do they need a dog run in the backyard? And are you going to be entertaining in the backyard? Think about that before you start going into your purchasing of materials. Always think about maintenance. Sometimes it gets easy to just set and forget it. Not that we promote gravel, but I know a lot of people ripping out their grass and putting in these gravel scapes, and then they have mature trees, so that the leaves just get caught in all that gravel, and they didn't realize that they're going to have to blow out leaves and then rake the gravel so that it's not all lumpy. So think about those things. And of course, the city's always here to give resources, maybe not to gravelscapes, but to definitely sustainable landscaping. One thing that we are promoting, both at Austin Water and Watershed Protection is rainscaping. And Austin Water has a rebate program for that. So it includes berms, terracing, swales, and most importantly, rain gardens. They also, you see this picture down to the bottom left, you'll see some porous pavement. So that's a pavement that water is allowed to percolate through. We also do the porous asphalt as well. I don't get too many applications for that. Most of the applications for this particular rebate is for rain gardens. It doesn't take that much to make a swale, build up a berm in order to slow that flow down, and put some plants in it. And we're giving a 30 cents a square foot, minimum 100 square feet, and then a maximum of $500 for that rebate. I'm sorry. Rainwater harvesting. I do have a lunch and learn. I just want to go ahead and put that out there. And I think Pat's going to go ahead and put that link somewhere where you can see it. And I'll be talking about this program in major detail for people that are not familiar with this rebate. The basically it's very, very popular. We've had a lot of businesses promote our program because they do like the amount that we're giving. We're giving 50 cents per gallon for non-pressurized system. It means gravity released. But once you put a pump on there, we call it a pressurized system, and we'll give you $1 per gallon. In particular, anything over 500 gallons that's pressurized will need a backflow prevention. That's a requirement, and so that's why we're giving it a little bit more money for those pressurized systems. We have a max rebate amount of $5,000, and you need to, if it's going to be over 500 gallons, then you're going to need to get pre-approved. And that's because we want to make sure that we have the funds for you. We don't want to run out of funds midway through your project. It does take a little bit of time, but it's worth it in the end. The picture you're seeing up here is just a basic schematic of what it would be like for somebody to collect water. This particular diagram does include water treatment. Yes, you can drink rainwater as long as you follow state guidelines. We do, Austin Water was sort of shying away from this. Now they're on board. As long as you follow state guidelines, we are more than happy for you to use rainwater inside your house for anything, even during freeze. I heard some stories about people taking the rainwater. I'm sorry, during the freeze a couple of years ago, I forgot the name of the storm, but they were actually without water in some places, and they were using the rainwater from their cistern to flush toilets. So that was a good backup for something that could happen in the future. So, and not to scare anybody, but just to know that you can use this rainwater in multiple ways. Austin Water would prefer that you use it to irrigate your plants instead of using city water. There's some links on the bottom you can go to see what to get our application for that. And then we also, the Grow Green website has a fact sheet on cisterns. And you can just go through that website and look up the fact sheets there, and it's on that list. One thing that we have going on right now is laundry to landscape. That's basically using gray water, so water that comes from your washing machine. If you want to try to do this simple plumbing thing, basically a diverter, three-way diverter that diverts water from your laundry out into the landscape and into a mulched basin, we can give you some money for that. There's more information on that, but it's also good to use gray water instead of to conserve on our natural resources. So soil options, you can, there's three things I have here. You can work with what you have. If you only have an inch or two of soil, you can work with that. You might need to add some extra soil, or some compost to sort of thicken it up. Of course, amending soil is the next thing. Always good to add some kind of compost, mulch, something that will break down and add nutrients to the soil to make it more viable, to allow the plants to extend their roots, to stabilize it. And then three, if you're on a slope, it's always good to use raised beds so that whatever you use, this example is of course a stone, like some kind of river rock, but to contain it, I don't mind people using gravel or stone if it's in a raised bed where it's not going to go into the street, it's not going to wash off, and it's going to stay put. More on soil amendments. This picture, I always like this picture here. One neighbor is using compost top dressing. They put a 1/4 inch of compost or compost soil blend on the yard, and then the other neighbor's not doing it. You can see the difference. The grass is going to stay greener longer. You're going to water less. You can start reducing your times. I do remember that there's a lot of people here with automatic irrigation systems. Whenever you start doing this type of work, by making your lawn or your plant beds more efficient, please remember to reduce those run times. Just a minute or two less will make a big difference. Those spray head emitters emit so much water, hundreds of gallons, thousands of gallons every cycle. So if you were to do that, please remember to reduce your runtime. We offer the Austin Resource and Recovery offers compost. I believe I checked it out a couple of months ago. I didn't check it out since then. I'm not sure if it's still there. If it's not there, I'm sorry for doing that, for posting this, but they did have a rebate for composting at home. That's something that we can look into. Sorry about that. So mulch was always great. We suggest that you put in 1 to 2 inches of mulch in your plant beds. It will reduce the amount of water. It also acts like a blanket in the summer and the winter. So it keeps the sun from really drying up the soil in the summer, and then in the winter it insulates the roots. So they don't get damaged with the winter storms. So we have another rebate, Austin Water. It's called the Landscape Survival Tools Rebate. We offer $40 for mulch, or sorry, 2 cubic yards. It's quite a bit. 2 cubic yards of compost, you can get $50, and core aeration, we can give you $30. There's a company in town that's promoting liquid aeration. Basically, that's just fertilizer. We are not giving rebates for that at this time, but we are giving rebates for core aeration. That's the one where the machine takes out these plugs of soil so that water and air can get into the root layer, where they can make those roots nice and healthy. Responsible turf care. Already mentioned that program. As always, there's a picture of the core aeration with those plugs coming out. You can see the roots getting thicker there. We would prefer that you do this. The city would prefer that you would do this method instead of just doing some kind of granular fertilizer, or if you do have to use it because of the conditions or it's just not working, we do ask that you use a slow release organic fertilizer. And please do not fertilize right before a rain, because we don't want, like I said, with the torrential downpours that we get here in Austin, we don't want those chemicals going into our streams and creeks. A little bit about native and adapted plants. Grow Green has the native and adapted landscape plant guide. You don't need to really know too much about plants to know what works here in Austin. You can go down the road, anywhere you go, you'll see rosemary. You'll see that's to the right. I'm going to go in clockwise order. You'll see the lantana, the agave. There's some silver ponyfoot underneath of it. The mountain laurel with the purple flowers, and of course, Texas sage. These are tried and true here in Austin. They're going to survive through freezes, through extreme temperatures. They might not look pretty in 100-degree weather, but they're going to survive. And when it comes down to it, why spend money on something that's not going to survive? And it might, like I said, look ugly for a month or two, but it'll come back, and with the spring and fall rains will just be spectacular. Another thing we were talking about before is minimizing turf grass in the yard. Now, how are you using the turf grass? Like I said before, dog run, playground, etc. If you're not using your turf grass, which is lawn, I'm sorry, in the industry we call St. Augustine, zoysia, Bermuda, buffalo, all those grasses that you plant and mow, turf grass. And so how are you using that turf grass? Oh, we just updated our WaterWise landscape rebate. We are giving basically $1 a square foot for you to take out that unused turf grass that you're watering with your irrigation system or your hose end sprinkler or your hand watering. And we want you to put in plant beds that are, one, use hardwood mulch, no gravel, and use native and adapted plants, plants that are tried and true and will survive. And look at, and this before and after this shows you, it doesn't need to be a lot, minimum 500 square feet. This picture here looks like it's just at 500 square feet in the front. Maybe just a little bit less, but this is not the whole picture. I'm sure that they probably did a little bit more than just that front yard. And so it's less, one, less grass maintenance, and two, just looks, I think it looks a whole lot better with with just the before and after. We do allow a little bit of patio area, which can be that gravel, just because I've gotten so many applications where it's like I had to not deny, but remove that square footage. We're going to go ahead and keep it in now, because who doesn't want, after converting your landscape to something that looks great, who doesn't want to be out in the landscape? So with their fire pit, a couple chairs, enjoying their hard work. So we are accepting that. Don't think that we're totally against gravel walkways or patio areas. We do understand that there's a need for them. Hydrozoning is a term you might not be familiar with. Basically, what we're talking about is where you're going to place the plants, right? If you have a lantana, they like full sun. They actually like the evening sun, but where are you going to put it? Now, you can see on this map here, north is up. So unit A, anything on the south side of that, which would be right along the driveway, is going to get lots and lots of sun, especially since there's no trees there. So you can imagine that south side of the unit A will be just hit with heat all day long. So put something that's going to live there, not, don't try to put something that's just going to take a lot of water in order to keep alive. Something that can, maybe some agaves, some other succulents or grasses that can withstand that heat. Of course, if you look in that area D, that's going to have all day sun, or sorry, all day shade. So you might want to put something like Turk's cap there, or something that can handle shade. Maybe take out the grass in that area, since it's not going to get enough sun because the house is blocking it. So think about that. That's all hydrozoning is making sure that you're planting in groups that make sense. Now we're going to talk a little bit about green spaces. We're trying to reduce the urban heat island effect by creating a cooler microclimate. So some of the strategies we have here is just planting trees. Of course, trees are going to offer shade. You can also look into green roofs or green walls. There's a picture up on top with a green wall. It looks like they have some trellis with ivy growing up the side of the house there. Other things is having reflective roofs, lighter colored roofs, or something that can reflect that heat or light, sorry. And then also look into permeable pavement. I talked about that. We do have rebate and awesome water for this. It does cost a little bit, but in the long run, you're helping out the infiltration of stormwater. And then think about shade structures as well. And then, of course, lighter colored pavements. I've seen there was a big trend to use, what do they call it? Some black gravel. I think it's called shale, or some kind of chat gravel that they have out there. If you put it in the shade, I don't see that being a big issue. But if it's going to have any amount of sunlight, that black gravel is just going to heat up and create that microclimate. And you're going to go outside, you're going to wish that you weren't outside because it's so hot out there. And that's not good. Please try to pick lighter colored pavements when thinking about using any type of stone or concrete. I think everybody knows the importance of trees. I'm not going to go too much into that, but yeah, it's great. Increases your home value. I know I wouldn't have bought my home if I didn't know there was mature trees on it. I thought it was really great. It shades my house part of the day, not all day long, but part of the day, which is, it helps out with energy savings. Oh, let me one more. I'm sorry. How do I go back? Oh. One other thing I wrote here in my notes, there is, if you're going to try planting trees, try planting on the south and the west sides of the house. That way, once they're mature, they would be able to give you shade on your house and or any concrete you have, driveway, sidewalks, or anything like that. Integrated pest management. Now, with more plants and less grass you have, you're going to have different plant issues. So you might look into beneficial bugs, or just there's a lot of resources. Like I keep on going back to this Grow Green website, but there's lots of resources for it. But yeah, there's other ways to keep plants healthy without using pesticides. So look into those options. Some of your nurseries will have organic products, which are safe for all your lawn care needs. You know, they're sulfur powder, different types of diatomaceous earth that will deal with pests. Pest, safe for your pets, bad for pests. So look into those products at your local nurseries. That is about it for me. I can go forever talking about our water conservation programs, but this is about sustainable landscaping. I hope that if you have any more questions, please call our main line here or go to waterwiseaustin.org and check out our residential rebate programs. We do offer irrigation audits for those people using over 20,000 gallons per month. Believe me, that will happen. Some of you might know, might have had a broken irrigation system and the water just kept on running, or had multiple run times and didn't understand what was going on until it was too late and you got a high bill. So please check out our website and other things that we have on there. So with that, I guess I'm going to go ahead and start answering some questions that you might have.
Chris, can you see the Q&A box?
Yes, I do. I can see it.
Okay.
I got one here. It says, how would hydroponic or aquaponic setups play into these kind of setups? That's a very good question. We haven't had this question before. I do know that there is some, as far as hydroponics, and there are some gardening techniques that mimic hydroponics, where you can use like wicking beds, where the water doesn't is underground and doesn't evaporate as fast. But any type of hydroponic where you're using any type of drip system is basically not water efficient, so to say. As far as aquaponics, there are a lot of people that want to make water features in their yard, and we support that. We just make sure that when it starts getting into the fountain world, and I say fountain because once you have a fountain with water dripping more than 4 inches, then with our watering restrictions here in city of Austin, going into stage 2, I believe, you cannot have that fountain running unless it's giving support to some aquatic life. So like fish or something like that. So that's something to think about when you're building a pond or something with a water feature. Make sure that you uh, have something that doesn't fall more than 4 inches into the air. I hope I answered your question. I'm not a very big expert on hydroponics, but I do know that it's not a very efficient way to grow food or plants. So yeah, you might want to talk to a horticulturalist or some nursery here in town that specializes in that to make sure that it's as efficient as possible. We really don't want to waste any water. I have another question here. Any tips for hiring a landscape designer? Unfortunately, the city of Austin cannot promote any business here. So if you were to say that, you know, which guy's better, this guy or that guy, we can't do that. But we can tell you that there have been some landscape designers that have taken the Grow Green landscape professional training, and that's on the Grow Green site. I can't tell you if they are good or bad or rip you off or anything like that. All I know is that they've taken multiple days and listened to what I had to say and what Denise Delaney at Grow Green has to say about sustainable landscapes, and they should know what the city wants. So that might be a list you can start off with and then take it from there. All right, here's another one. Similar to gray water washing machine, could we connect our garden hose to use like an outdoor kitchen just for washing hands or gardening bench? So I have seen something like that before. I've seen people with outdoor kitchens just hook a hose to a spigot and then run it into their outdoor kitchen. I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not, because over time that hose will deteriorate and you know might clog up your faucet or something like that. It's best to definitely hard plumb that spigot and maybe make a diverter for that spigot. But yeah, I don't know. These are really interesting questions today. But yeah, as long as it's potable water, you can hard plumb that line to go into your outdoor kitchen for washing hands or anything like that. I would not use gray water to wash your hands, or any type of alternative water, including rainwater. I feel like that's a liability, and being Austin Water, we don't support that. We do support you washing your hands and with potable water that's been treated by our facilities. Another question. The Cool House tour has featured an urban farm that raised fish to use their poop for plant fertilizer. That's awesome. Yeah, fish poop is a great plant fertilizer. Chicken poop as well. But I think that's a really cool idea. Just make sure that you read more up about it. I don't know too much about it, but I do like the fact that people are looking for alternative fertilizers instead of the chemicals that you can see at the stores. Also here, if you convert turf to mulch areas, but an automatic irrigation system is already installed. How do you recommend modifying the irrigation system? Excellent question. I did not go into that, but we would prefer that you either take it out completely, that area that you're converting, take out the irrigation system completely, or convert to drip. We do see there is a little bit of water savings when people convert to drip, as long as they set it at the right setting. So those are the two options that we have for that particular program, WaterWise landscape program. So if you do that, convert to turf, convert turf to mulch beds, and you do have an irrigation system, we would have to verify that you have taken out or converted to drip. Thank you. Is it allowed to combine a rain cistern and gray water system for landscape irrigation? These are good questions today, folks. I'm very happy. Yes, you can combine alternative waters into one tank and then pump it into your irrigation system. You will definitely need to have a backflow prevention device, which will have to be checked annually, but you will definitely can do that. We see that a lot in the commercial realm where they collect rainwater, and in the summers when the rain's not falling, they put their AC condensate water into the same tank. So yes, definitely a good question there. Awesome questions tonight. You can do that. It's just make sure that you're abiding to our rules and regulations for alternative waters. All right, I think that's all I got here.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. And you gave them your phone number, and so everyone knows who to ask water questions of.
Yes, yes. So please give me contact. I'll stay around if you have any more Q&A for our next 5 minutes. I can answer it in the type it out. So like I said, thank you so much.
Well, as I said earlier, my name is Patricia, and I'm a conservation program coordinator with Austin Energy Green Building, and I've been in the green building team for almost 7 years, and currently I rate single family, multifamily projects and manage the residential energy code adoption for the city of Austin. I've worked in energy efficiency and green building industry for over 10 years now. So, and then again, just welcoming you to the second night of Green by Design. Last week, you learned about site-specific design strategies that offered you passive benefits for comfort and home performance. Okay, sorry. You talked about what you wanted from a home, comfort, healthy living, and affordability. So this evening, we're going to pick that up and look how your product and material choices contribute to those goals. To start, I'll give you a broad overview of what makes building products green with a short video, excuse me, to demonstrate the impacts of our product and material choices. After the video, we'll dive into each building component to relate those impacts. It's going to be really impossible for me to cover all of the green building products on the market in just one evening. And I'm not here to promote specific products, similar to what Chris was saying about not being able to promote specific contractors. Excuse me, those allergies that Chris was talking about. But rather, I'm here to help you understand the underlying features that make a product green. In this way, you can feel more confident in making your own product choices that best fit your project goals. Truly green home, I think, is collaboration of that design, the products, the system, and they all come together and form like synergistic results. This involves trade-offs, unfortunately, fortunately, between these three areas. So this session is about giving you that knowledge for you to be able to make decisions for your own project. So we're going to start out with a poll as well. And that should come up here in a second. So what's the most important to you? I talked about those trade-offs. First, let's ask what's the most important to you. Nick, will it automatically pop up the poll results? There it goes. I apologize. So not unexpectedly, most of you chose energy efficiency. That's quite understandable. It's been the one ever since, you know, Carter told us to put our sweaters on. And there's been a lot of effort towards energy efficiency. But looking at it, Chris will be a little sad with the water efficiency item, but air quality, healthy home, that's really encouraging. That one is definitely on the trend going upward. Resource efficient carbon, and so far nothing in equity, but we'll touch on that one. And so that was the most important thing for you. So let's look at the next poll, which is kind of the reverse, and see what's the least important to you. Sometimes it's not always just the reverse of your answers. I apologize. So you see that, so the answers weren't exactly an opposite of what the answers were before. So seeing what was the least is pretty valuable, and seeing, unfortunately, equity is one of those, but you can see the different answers that you and your fellow classmates here today have made. So understanding what's most important to you will drive your project goals and project selections. And this means that we traded off some of our least important items to get where we wanted. But what if I'm stuck? What tools can I use to evaluate my options? And on the screen, you'll see that there's a bunch of different tools like green product certifications, environmental product declarations, life cycle assessments. Those are kind of probably word soups right now, but we're going to go a little bit in detail and tell you about those. A life cycle assessment is kind of the first one we're going to talk about, because it's kind of umbrella term and incorporates some of those other ones. And they are one way a person can evaluate environmental impacts of the individual products or materials used in a building, even a building itself. A life cycle assessment weighs the impacts of each stage of the building product and converts to a common metric like greenhouse gases. The picture on the left is a diagram of a linear system of a life cycle from building products from the Athena Sustainable Materials Institute. And our real goal is to break that linear system and reform it into a circular system. It starts with resource extraction and just goes to, it has recycling and reuse disposal, but that's not, it doesn't connect the circle to be a input to the next. And that's what we're looking for. Many of you may not have considered life cycle assessments when choosing building products before, and it can get really, really detailed. And if diving deep into something like that is not for you, we recommend recommend at a minimum giving some thought to where the raw materials come from, what processes are required to get the product to you in a usable state, how those processes might affect the world in which we live in over the long run, and how the products are going to perform over time. So just keeping these ideas and thoughts in place when you're considering your products and materials. So we're going to watch a very short video. It's video 2 here on the screen. We include that video 1 just as your background information, but usually we run out of time because Chris gives us a whole bunch of goodies from Austin Water. But that video 2 is like a live demonstration of how to use an LCA. And we will we'll kind of consider that with some of the features that we go looking forward. So I'm gonna bring up the video.
First of all, I'm a geek. I'm an organic food eating, carbon footprint minimizing, robotic surgery geek. And I really want to build green. But I'm very suspicious of all of these well-meaning articles, people long on moral authority and short on data telling me how to do these kinds of things. And so I have to figure this out for myself. For example, is this evil? I have dropped a blob of organic yogurt from happy, self-actualized local cows on my countertop, and I grab a paper towel and I want to wipe it up. But can I use a paper towel? The answer to this can be found in embodied energy. This is the amount of energy that goes into any paper towel or embodied water. And every time I use a paper towel, I am using this much virtual energy and water. Wipe it up, throw it away. Now, if I compare that to a cotton towel that I can use 1,000 times, I don't have a whole lot of embodied energy until I wash that yogurty towel. This is now operating energy. So if I throw my towel in the washing machine, I've now put energy and water back into that towel. Unless I use a front-loading, high-efficiency washing machine, and then it looks a little bit better. But what about a recycled paper towel that comes in those little half sheets? Well, now paper towel looks better. Screw the paper towels. Let's go to a sponge. I wipe it up with a sponge, and I put it under the running water, and I have a lot less energy and a lot more water. Unless you're like me and you leave the handle in the position of the hot even when you turn it on, and then you start to use more energy. Or worse, you let it run until it's warm to rinse out your towel. And now all bets are off. So what this says is that sometimes the things that you least expect, the position in which you put the handle, have a bigger effect than any of those other things that you were trying to optimize. Now imagine someone as twisted as me trying to build a house. So that's what my husband and I are doing right now. And so we wanted to know, how green could we be? And there's 1,001 articles out there telling us how to make all these green trade-offs. And they are just as suspect and telling us to optimize these little things around the edges and missing the elephant in the living room. Now, the average house has about 300 megawatt hours of embodied energy in it. This is the energy it takes to make it. Millions and millions of paper towels. We wanted to know how much better we could do. And so, like many people, we start with a house on a lot, and I'm going to show you typical instruction on the top and what we're doing on the bottom. So first we demolish it. It takes some energy, but if you deconstruct it, you take it all apart, you use the bits, you can get some of that energy back. We then dug a big hole to put in a rainwater catchment tank to take our yard water independent. And then we poured a big foundation for passive solar. Now you can reduce the embodied energy by about 25% by using high fly ash concrete. We then put in framing. And so this is framing, lumber, composite materials. And it's kind of hard to get the embodied energy out of that, but it can be a sustainable resource if you use FSC certified lumber. We then go on to the first thing that was very surprising. If we put aluminum windows in this house, we would double the energy use right there. Now, PVC is a little bit better, but still not as good as the wood that we chose. We then put in plumbing, electrical, and HVAC, and insulate. Now, spray foam is an excellent insulator. It fills in all of the cracks, but it is pretty high embodied energy. And sprayed in cellulose or blue jeans is a much lower energy alternative to that. We also used straw bale infill for our library, which has 0 embodied energy. When it comes time to sheetrock, if you use Eco Rock, it's about 1/4 of the embodied energy of standard sheetrock. And then you get to finishes, the subjects of all of those Go Green articles. And on the scale of a house, they almost make no difference at all, and yet all the press is focused on that, except for flooring. If you put carpeting in your house, it's about 1/10 of the embodied energy of the entire house, unless you use concrete or wood for a much lower embodied energy. So now we add in the final construction energy, we add it all up, and we've built a house for less than half of the typical embodied energy for building a house like this. But before we pat ourselves too much on the back, we have poured 151 megawatt hours of energy into constructing this house when there was a house there before. And so the question is, how could we make that back? And so if I run my new energy efficient house forward compared to the old non-energy efficient house, we make it back in about 6 years. Now, I probably would have upgraded the old house to be more energy efficient, and if that case, it would take me more about 20 years to break even. Now, if I hadn't paid attention to embodied energy, it would have taken us over 50 years to break even, compared to the upgraded house. So what does this mean? On the scale of my portion of the house, this is equivalent to about as much as I drive in a year. It's about 5 times as much as if I went entirely vegetarian. But my elephant in the living room flies. Clearly, I need to walk home from TED. But all the calculations for embodied energy are on the blog. And remember, it's sometimes the things that you are not expecting to be the biggest changes that are. Thank you.
I just love that video because it goes into these just different decisions that we have to make when we're thinking about a remodel or a new construction house, when and what materials, and really what are the effects and what are the perceived impacts that the internet might be telling you are more important than maybe they really are. So carbon reduction is something that the speaker went into a little bit of detail about. Carbon is categorized in 2 ways: embodied carbon, which is essentially the carbon emissions associated from manufacturing, transportation, installation, maintenance, disposal of the building, all the things that go into all the materials. Operational carbon, on the other hand, is all the carbon emissions released when you're actually operating the house, when you're living there, when you're using the air conditioner, when you're taking showers, feeding the dog with an automated dog feeder or something like that. All that different energy, you can give it an equivalent carbon emission value. So for those of you that responded that carbon was most important to you, information from that life cycle assessment, along with other tools, can help you decide the best products for you and materials for your carbon reduction goals. The American Institute of Architects also has a similar list as a top 10 list on their website. And embodied carbon represents the carbon. Oh, oops, sorry. There's also a materials palette website that gives information. So these next few slides, we're going to talk about design, durability, material sourcing, and waste management as an effect on your resource efficiency. Keep in mind that complicated designs require many more resources to build. So last week you learned it all starts at design for the lowest initial construction costs, as well as long-term maintenance and repair costs. Stick as close as possible to rectangular shapes. You can find other ways to find architectural interest other than extra corners, dormers, things that jut out and jut in. Every time you create a corner in an exterior wall, you're adding complexity to those components where you have to add more flashing, more framing, opportunities for water intrusion, air leakage, things that you have to make up for. Complicated designs features also increase the risk for leaks, which over time result in damage to the structure, and you have to repair it, which then requires more resources and money to remedy. Building up rather than out reduces the foundation and roofing materials. So you can combine that with advanced framing techniques that carry the load efficiently from the foundation to the roof and yield significant savings. Another way to reduce the amount of resources needed to design the home is to design it on 2-foot modules, since most building materials are sold in 2-foot increments. So then we're buying what they sell us and building with those, designing and building with the materials. So you have less cutoffs. You're able to install and use those materials more efficiently. Another aspect is designing the home so that you're centrally locating your mechanical and your water heating system. So the indoor part of your air conditioning system, because the closer you can put those to the center, the shorter the supply lines to every room, which reduces both the base material, installation costs, and you're increasing the efficiency of delivery of the comfort saving on your monthly utility bills. That the air has less distance to cover, the water has less distance to cover from its source. Durability. So definitely do yourself a favor and keep in mind durability every time you make a decision. Choose products that stand up against weather and pests and need less maintenance and repairs. Repairs require us to use more resources because the first resources we used just weren't good enough to last. By using products that require less finishing, like stone or tile, or materials that serve more than one purpose, like concrete foundations as finished floors, you reduce the number of products you need. Use products that are reusable or recyclable in our homes so we can reduce the need to continually harvest more virgin resources. So a good example of that, and keeping in mind the idea of trade-offs, is like right now, I'm going to be going through a deck remodel. My deck is on the 2nd level. I have to decide what kind of material I want to use for the deck. Most commonly is wood, but there's a popular choice of using ipe, which is a Brazilian hardwood, and then another choice is composite decking. So for me, the trade-off is I don't want any maintenance. I got enough to do in my life than try to maintain my deck if there's a different option. So that ranks higher, and it also includes high recycled content. All those plastic bags you're recycling at Randall's and HEB, those go into composite decking materials. They're durable, and like I said, very low maintenance. So that, to me, those are the trade-offs I deal with and make me decide to do composite decking versus the ipe. Coming from Brazil, those rainforests seem a lot more important where they're at than on my deck. To conserve resources, we need to look at the source of the materials and at manufacturing efficiencies. To keep from continually depleting natural resources, we should select products made from rapidly renewable resources, salvage, recycled, or otherwise have been repurposed from existing resources, and or require minimal processing and manufacturing. Locally sourced products within 500 miles of the project don't add a lot of embodied energy from the shipping and also support local economies. We have many national manufacturers operations here in Texas, from Southern Pine Lumber in East Texas and Louisiana, drywall, siding, windows, doors, trim, aggregates, stone, local woods, flooring. Consider manufacturers that cycle waste streams back into the product stream. So here in the pictures, at the top right and the bottom left, those are pictures from Habitat's Restore. So you just go in there and you can, as you can see, you can shop for a door, find the one that's right for you. The top left picture is a project here in town that was zero waste. They essentially had one regular cart that you would use in your weekly trash. And that's the only trash that they, construction debris that they had throughout the whole project. Everything else was recycled, reused, found on Craigslist, you name it, they did it. And then at the bottom right is another project. I really apologize. Another project that used a lot of reused and recycled material. You can see the circular stair in the back, the cabinetry. This is definitely a rustic look. So some of these things, they kind of have to mesh with your aesthetic, but they're all doable. You just have to design for them. Waste management. So the EPA estimates nearly 600 million tons of construction and demolition debris generated in the United States. And that was in 2017, which is more than twice the amount generated of your municipal solid waste. So the trash that AR picks up, you know, that kind of trash is your municipal solid waste. So there's a lot of waste generated in the construction industry. And those wasted materials that have been through the entire linear equation that we were showing earlier with all of those impacts, and then they're thrown in the bin and then get driven to the landfill, and hopefully there's something that they pull out for recycling. So managing and reducing construction waste should be part of your plan for resource efficiency. That was definitely part of my construction specifications for my deck remodel, is to hire a local hauler that knows what they're doing and will recycle all that they can out of the materials. You can sort on site, and that makes it obviously easier because they're all delineated, but the city does allow lots of haulers allowed commingled. You on site, you can still reuse some stuff. So like two studs that you have on scrap can use for wall blocking for extra accessibility in the house. Broken up concrete scrap for drainage features like rain gardens, like Chris was talking about. Ground untreated wood to use for mulch. If you do not make use of reuse opportunities, you'll end up buying more products to do the same thing that you had to do anyway. So why not just design for it? Construction waste management has been a big thing in Austin for a while. So it shouldn't be too hard to find waste contractors to do it for you. Just like any industry, sometimes paperwork is a little harder for some folks than others, but you should be able to find someone to help you out. Just like in the video, deconstruction is an option. So instead of just having the wrecking ball come over, you can take apart the house, and that way it's easier to recycle and reuse materials there. That's definitely an alternative, and I've heard that there is usually very good tax benefits, tax credits, because you're able to donate a lot of those deconstructed materials. Lastly, the picture on the far right, looking at alternative materials to build with. These are panelized and modular, so this is another way of reducing waste, is to manufacture some of these components at the factory and then bring them to the job site, not having to just do everything at the job site. And additionally, any excess materials that cutoffs or anything, they get put back into the product stream. So it creates less waste. So you can have a structurally insulated panels, and that's what you have. You see here where you have the wood with the insulation in the middle. There's just a different building material. There are builders in town that do this type of construction. By and far, stick framing is the most common. Health and safety. So I just asking, this was not an official poll, but how many of you have someone in your family that suffers from allergies or chemical sensitivities? Me, hands up, as you're evidencing tonight. Toxic chemicals are used in everything from construction materials to home furnishings, and those can definitely affect our health and the health of the workers that are exposed to them during construction on a continual basis. So we're going to just review a few of those to be on the lookout for. VOCs is some letters that you may have seen. That's volatile organic compounds. Those are toxins released in the vapor form. So those can definitely affect the air quality in the home. Formaldehyde, specifically uroformaldehyde, is used as a binder in plywood and particle wood, fiberglass insulation. It's trending out of the insulation, which is good, but you still have to kind of be on the lookout to avoid those products. Styrene is used to manufacture some carpets and carpet adhesives. Currently, polystyrene-based foams dominate the spray foam market, so make sure your contractor has been properly trained in mixing those chemicals. Flame retardants, which are required and they do their job, but luckily, that's even still, those are things that people can be sensitive to, and we want to be sure that they're not doing more harm than good. Luckily, there is some green chemistry, and we're seeing more product manufacturers using less toxic chemicals in the manufactured products. You should do your homework definitely and specify products that carry independent third-party certifications. So EPA has one that's called Safer Choice Program. There's, here again is where you get into alphabet soup, but there's GS11 standards that you can look at MSDS sheets, health product declarations. All these things are out there. It is definitely a rabbit trail, but worth it, especially if you're sensitive, to look and see what you could be exposing yourself to. So we have this slide in here about equity, and mainly because let's not forget about the people. The people, that's one of the pillars of sustainability, the people, profit, and planet, right? And if we're not doing all this good stuff that I'm talking about, Chris is talking about, Heidi and Lee talked about last week, then if we're not doing that for the people, then who are we doing it for? My dog just needs to be scratched behind the ear and belly rubs. As long as I'm doing that and feeding him, he's good. He doesn't care about climate change. So equity is much used term these days. I'm sure everyone's heard it on the radio or on TV, but you know, we hear words all the time, and they like to hand them out like cards. But what do they mean exactly? And like I say, you could search the internet and find 1,000,001 answers. So the dictionary definition is the quality of being fair and impartial. However, I think it's best understood in comparison with similar word called equity. Equality. Equality has to do with giving everyone the exact same resources, whereas equity involves distributing those resources based on the needs of the recipients. So what do they actually need instead of just handing them the same as everyone else? So with that in mind, what can we do to incorporate equity into our projects? And so the bullets on the screen address some of these things: paying prevailing wages, workforce development, making sure that there's codes and conducts and that people in the are not getting exposed to all those harmful chemicals just because that's their job. Engage underrepresented populations in one part of your construction project. You know, there's different ways, and some may be easy, but a lot are hard, and it takes a lot of hard work, but it's definitely worth it. So those that I gave before in the previous slides, we kind of learned a set of values of the products and materials that are resource efficient, healthy, safe for people and the environment, kind of giving us those whys. Why are we doing this? So in this next section of the presentation, we're going to go through the house component by component, understand what we need to be on the lookout for those values. What's really important? What kind of specifications should we be looking for? And I'm using hashtags. I think now Twitter's gotten even more popular since I started this presentation, created this presentation, but using those to kind of tag what those values we learned at the beginning to these components. So it kind of puts things together. So starting at the bottom, the foundation and the concrete, and I mean, it goes without saying, we need strong foundations. Nobody wants a weak foundation and the house falls down or slides out from under them, or any of those dire things. So we definitely design and engineer the foundation for the site. Failure to do that, or under designing and over designing, you know, that's when we get waste of money, waste of materials, and potential failures. So Central Texas, where we're at, Chris was alluding to east versus west and soil types. I mean, there's just different topologies and soil conditions here. So it's really important to investigate different foundation systems to what's going to work best for your site. Concrete itself creates impervious surfaces that increase stormwater and runoff, reduce pervious land area available for water, and infiltrate back into our aquifer. So using pavers or pervious concrete for the flat work, such as the driveways and walkways and patios, that allows the water to infiltrate in. Like Chris was saying, lighter colored materials to have greater solar reflectance to reduce that urban heat island effect. To save money and resources, contractors can reuse the form boards right here that they use for concrete. And they can recycle that concrete washout systems, and those systems can also be treated, treat toxic materials from concrete truck clean out. So that way you're not carrying that around. Use of more fly ash in the concrete formula can reduce that embodied carbon emissions. There is a concrete contractor in town that does have an environmental product declaration. So that's kind of all the nutritional label that tells all the environmental ins and outs of a product or material. There's one in town for concrete that shows lower embodied carbon. Moving up to the framing, apart from using an alternative building system, framing is done with wood or metal, primarily with wood here. Regardless, it's important to verify either the material is installed efficiently and sourced sustainably. Advanced framing techniques that I mentioned before help guide us with that efficient installation. You can see in the picture at the top right, These are some of the things that you can do. You can stack the framing, um, two by 6 studs, 24 on center, right sizing the headers so that way you don't have extra lumber. I think we've all seen it where there's like 3 or 4 pieces of dimensional lumber there. It's kind of a lumber soup. And again, getting those windows placed so that they fall in those 2-foot layouts. So that way that these gaps in between are less, that you don't have so many of those. Then your insulation is sized appropriately to fit in there too. So for the lumber itself, there's 2 third-party certifications that you can look for. That's FSC is one of them, and the other one is SFI. Both of those are forestry, sustainable forestry certifications, so that you can look to them. They each have their pros and cons, so you kind of have to look to see which one is the thing that you're looking for most. Metal framing is done, and it is sustainable because it's durable to the weather. It's not going to degrade like a wood, not going to rot. For some reason, termites have a hard time eating it, which is good. And infinitely recyclable, using recycled steel, reclaimed wood, and wood from sustainably managed forests are the best ways to reduce that embodied carbon emissions. Engineered products are structural products made from smaller growth trees and wood waste used in place of solid sawn lumber. The 2 biggest benefits of engineered products are that the waste is cycled back through the production in the manufacturing process, and products are made to the exact measurements to fit the application. So in both situations, waste is minimized. Examples are finger jointed studs. Here on the right, there is trusses and your structural beams. You can see the material. Trees don't grow that way. But like I said, the waste is minimized in that factory setting, and then they're delivered to the job site. And they do provide significant improvements to the structural stability. They're straighter, fewer defects like knotting. They don't get twisted and warping problems that you can get with others. And why that's important is because then that takes even more resources to repair. Framing alternatives. As mentioned earlier, alternative building or natural building systems, there's a lot of benefits in those, but they're not the most common construction type in town or even other towns. So we're not alone, but we do have some very good architects in town that focus on these types of construction. That is a benefit of Austin and our history with green building. While these systems aren't common, we do have a bench of knowledge in town about them. So if you really are interested in them, I would reach out and find those people that are in town that can do that. And examples of these things we mentioned earlier, the structural insulative products here. There's compressed earth. I'm going to say it was this house right here. We have a straw bale house. You can see that's in progress right there. ICFs, the insulation's there on the outside. So they're just different, and they all have their pros and cons. And again, that trade-off, knowing what it is that you're looking for. Pest management. Some green products are used to increase the durability and higher value of the building materials. But we have these little things called pests that want to do the opposite. And one of those, especially in our area, is They're called termites. And incorporating green pest management strategies, as Chris was discussing earlier during construction, can provide long-term risk reduction as an alternative to just calling the best local pest company in town and having them come out every month, 6 months, year, whatever schedule that you're on. So here on the left, they have a system under the ground to help prevent the termites. Here, where the guy's spraying, that was kind of the best picture I could find, but there is a borate spray that you can spray. That borate, termites don't like to eat it. So once they figure out that's installed, then they move on to the next house where it's not. Termi mesh, the picture with the pipe here and the mesh materials. There's a mesh that goes through the pipe system, and so then the termites can't move in through the tunnel system of your pipes and don't get into your house. Not creating a highway system, making it easy from plants to your house, giving a little space with some rocks or vertically with some more concrete is good ways to prevent those termites from moving in and not paying rent in a good way. Now, we've moved up from the foundation. We've talked about a little bit about walls. Now we're going to focus on that insulating the walls. And in that discussion, we're going to talk about air sealing and air barriers. The thermal value, which you'll hear people say the R value. That's another term. And we'll want to look at the quality of the installation. Those are really important considerations for your installation. So insulation, you can grade that at a 1, 2, or a 3, where 1 is the best and where you want to be. So that's really where the manufacturer says it should be installed. And that's less than 2% gaps, voids, and compressions. While not guaranteed, blown-in systems like blown-in bats, that's the picture here at the top right. There's a mesh material that's applied, and then they poke holes and blow the blown fiberglass or cellulose in the wall. This one's fiberglass. Spray foam, that's this picture here. That's another blown product. These products make it a whole lot easier to get that grade 1, and because you're not having to cut and fit things around things. You're just blowing it in. If it's something's in the way, you move the nozzle to go around the pipe or behind the wire. Often bat insulation is really a grade 3, not really where you want to be, just because it takes a lot of labor to get it at a grade 1. Not impossible, but not typical. And then by now you're probably asking, why is there a sweater and a puffy jacket? So this is that discussion of insulation versus an air barrier. So before we're talking about insulation, that insulation needs to be covered on all 6 sides to effectively do its job. And that air barrier is what's going to do it. So if you can imagine yourself in Rudolph's the Red-Nosed Reindeer sweater right now, and you're outside on a cold, windy day, that sweater is helpful. I'm not going to say it's not, but you still feel that bite of the cold. It gives you a little bit of goodness, but really you need something else. You need that green puffy jacket to stop that wind. That's why we had those windbreakers, those lovely windbreakers of the 90s, right? But that puffy jacket, that's your air barrier. It's stopping the air from getting in. Now, if it wasn't so breezy with that cold air, your sweater probably would be enough because it has enough thermal on you to keep you warm, but to block that air, you need that green puffy jacket. And lastly, we want to talk about air sealing because that's related to air barriers. Sometimes you need to seal. You don't need a hole. There'll just be a hole somewhere because of a wire or a pipe or something like that, because we want electricity and plumbing in our houses too. So you just need a seal that provides an air barrier to make sure that air leakage doesn't get in from your attic to your house or outside to your house. So we're just trying to reduce that air leakage, increase your thermal efficiency of the house. Those are the things to look for. Looking on the outside of the house, the green building uses building science to improve that moisture management and improve thermal performance and reduce that air infiltration. For long-term durability, how you install building materials can be just as important as the materials themselves. So like Chris was saying, we get huge rain events, not just little trickles throughout the year, 300 days of the year, but like Seattle, we're getting about the same amount of rain. So how we install and flash on the outside is super important, or we get to this nasty photo right there. Not good, not good. Nobody wants any mold there. So it's really important to keep an idea, make sure water is not getting into our wall assembly. And just a side note, I don't think it's done very often anymore, but this is the same reason why we don't do that vinyl wall covering in the house. Putting vinyl wallpaper, since that's a vapor barrier, it'll trap that moisture in the wall and then making some nasty mold. Windows, we all love windows, and those are the things that we get to look outside, look at the view, see at this time the nice green spring trees. But for those windows, we really want to look at the U factor, and that's a measure of the heat loss. The lower the U factor, the greater a window's resistance to heat flow and better its insulating value. So the lower the better. Solar heat gain coefficient is another number to look for, and that measures how much solar radiation is emitted through the window. So again, the lower the better. I would say that one's a little bit of a limiting factor. You can get too low, because don't forget, we actually do have a winter. It's not like Canada or even Oklahoma, but sometimes we do want some solar radiation in the house during those times of the month. A lot of you guys said that energy efficiency was your goal. So limiting glazing, limiting the windows to utility and function is a really good idea. So maybe you don't need, so in this case, it was good. Some people would put a window from all the way up there and all the way down to the bottom. This is a sliding glass door, but you don't really need that. You just need the ones at the top and the door at the bottom. Here you see that the windows aren't floor to ceiling, but they're still given them right amount of view that you need. So really consider, where do I need windows for daylighting? Where do I need windows for the view? So in my house, when we did our first remodel, because we definitely bought a fixer-upper, we do have a big window, but that's the one that goes out to the back, to the green belt, looks at the nice, pretty trees right now that blocks the view of 360. And that was definitely worth it. Most of the other windows are just for daylighting. So just know what it is that you want it to do and utilize that. The windows can come in different types. There's casements with you turn it open, turn it to close. Awnings and hoppers is very similar. Horizontal sliders, single hung, double hung means it can go up and down from the top. These are great because, you can leave it closed down at the bottom and just crack it at the top, let some heat out. And at night, let some cool air in. So it kind of depends what it is that you're wanting it to do. Some rooms are not really appropriate in our climate, neither are skylights because of that heat load on our roofs. So think about clear stories instead of skylights, or think about solar tubes. We got to the roof. We're getting there. The roof is just like the foundation. Durability is super important. And the ability to shed that heat and moisture. The most common roof is composite shingle here, but metal roofs are pretty popular as well. Metal roofs are pretty good too because they definitely expel the rainwater really fast. If you've designed for that down below, so you're not washing out things, but installing solar panels are much easier. They're much more durable. They're recyclable. You could do a green roof like here. That there are some in town, but there's that one's a little of a tougher one here in our climate. And then you do want to look for the SRI, solar reflective index of your roof, to its ability to reject solar heat, that radiant heat load from the sun. You want that reflect the light off the roof. The more radiant heat that's reflected off, that's less heat that's getting into your attic. Less heat into your attic means less heat into your house, because the heat doesn't just disappear anywhere. It goes somewhere, and that's the way it travels, because it wants to go from hot to cold and neutralize with what's in there, and that cold wants to go to hot. So so we want to reflect as much. Another thing that you can do is put radiant barrier. That's at the rafters of your roof. That's a code requirement for new houses in town, but for existing houses, you can, they sell that material at the home improvement stores, and you can, those are DIY projects if you want. Otherwise, there's contractors in town that do that for you. And we definitely want to make sure that the venting in our roof systems, whether it's there at the eaves or at the peak, here is all really good to make sure that the moisture is getting out of your attic. And then also thinking if you live near wildland areas, that we're not attracting embers by this ventilation pathway, because embers can definitely be in advance of a fire by a mile, and we don't want to catch our attic on fire. So we went through all the house. How well did we do? One way we can do that, tell that, is with thermal imaging. And the IR camera, and another term for it is IR, visualizes that heat transfer in the home. You do need to make sure that there's at least a temperature difference of 40 degrees. If the outside temperature and your inside temperature are about the same, the IR camera is not going to be picking up much. But when you do have that temperature difference between the outside and the in, you can find out missing insulation, not good air sealing. Here you can see some stuff. You can the lines. You can see that that's your studs. And that's why more insulation insulates more than more wood. But that's kind of how you look at it. This is a way of commissioning your house, and commissioning is just a big fancy word for making sure everything was done as it was supposed to and installed as it was supposed to. So you can do this with an IR camera yourself. There's contractors out there that do energy audits, and they lots of those guys have this tool as well. Now we've gone all the way outside through the components of the house, and now let's look inside. We're definitely looking for durable, healthy, classic features and finishes. Those VOCs that I mentioned earlier, that are released in the vapor form can affect your health. So we want to be on the lookout for those. For some of these finishes, like your paints and any of the adhesives and glues that go into the products, your furniture. Using classic styles and colors, then the less likely that they're going to go out of style and that you'll be like, I really want to redo that or buy that thing. And that's just more resources and more money over the long term. And then we recommend that you select products that require less finishing and use non-toxic cleaners. For the flooring durability, again, that's why I really emphasized it at the beginning, but you want that durable floor, the hard surface, the long life expectancy, low toxicity in the adhesives and binders of your flooring. You can use natural materials like linoleum or tile or bamboo, and it's gotten quite popular. Cork is still there. Stained concrete, local woods, salvage woods. There's a lot of different things that you can look at. We don't recommend carpet. I know that's still very popular, but it does trap pollutants and it's difficult to really, really clean it. Also, we don't recommend sheet vinyl because of the off-gassing of the material. If you do decide to go with carpet, there is a certification that some manufacturers can go through. And that's called a Carpet Rug Institute's Green Label. And they look for recycled material and recyclability, that toxicity in the material. So you can look at that label if that's something important to you. If you cannot find low VOC, best to buy products pre-finish offsite. So that way, all that off-gassing happens somewhere else in a factory that hopefully is set up to ventilate properly and it's not off-gassing in your house. Cabinet boxes are mainly constructed with MDF, that's medium density fiberboard. They have uroformaldehyde binders that off-gas for years. Specify healthier cabinets with third-party certifications. Alternative is cabinets made from natural or recycled materials. Get creative. Countertops. Laminate countertops contain uroformaldehyde binders and countertop glues that off-gas VOCs. Solid surface countertops are great for durability. Look for recycled content, natural materials such as paper, glass, or porcelain, or old Coca-Cola ice chests. Those work too, apparently. Finishes and adhesives. Look for products labeled low or no VOC, such as caulks, sealants, adhesives, paints, stains, varnishes, and other finishes. There are a lot of third-party certifications and agencies and programs pushing for more transparency of the chemicals in our materials. These are a bunch of those logos. Again, you're going to get a copy of these presentations after the third night. So, but definitely, if a lot of you did say air quality, so I would be looking out for these things. So again, our homes are made of lots of stuff, and all of that stuff has impacts. And unfortunately, this is the kind of the hardest night because a lot of people want me to tell them what products that they should use, but I don't know what your values are. What's your guiding light? What's most important to you? A lot of you guys said energy efficiency, and I've given you, look for our values, look for installation quality, look for U factors. But in the end, you have to kind of put down those goals, put down those trade-offs of what you're willing to emphasize more, once you're willing to emphasize less. And that's kind of how you're going to pick the products and materials that are going to work best for your project. So thank you. And that's the end of my part of the presentation. I am gonna stop the share screen, and then I should be able then to see your questions. I'm sure that there's plenty. The website that the TED Talk just mentioned. Excuse me. So I think that she's mentioning her own blog. So she the link to the TED Talk is in the presentation, so you'll be able to reference that. I don't have the link immediately available. Which materials would meet the Firewise criteria? So if you're looking to be Firewise, you definitely want to look at the City of Austin has adopted the Wildline Urban Interface Code, which is looking to be more cognizant to the building materials in the site to avoid wildfires. So I don't know that there's exact materials. They generally ask for certain, so like at the soffit, to make sure that the holes in your soffit are smaller so that embers can't get through, or not even have holes ventilation there, and to do different ventilation. So it's more like strategies. Your windows need to be tempered or double pane. So it's not exact materials, it's more of looking at criteria to the existing materials. Thanks. Great session. Thank you. Well, I know you guys have questions because you guys gave such great ones to Chris, but if just fill them in. If not, my email is there. Feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. And if you have a project you want to rate, or you just have a question about materials, or have a question about energy code, I'm more than happy to answer it. Are energy efficient practices a standard now for builders? Yes, I would say yes, because there is a code for it called the Energy Code. The City of Austin is adopted to the latest version. I sit on the residential committee at the national level for the next version. So trying to put in Austin's influence into what the next energy code might be. So I would say yes, there's a lot of market demand for other programs like Energy Star, HERS ratings that builders do to stand out from other builders. Green Building that I'm a part of is a voluntary program, unless it's negotiated into the zoning in some way. So projects you may have seen around town, like the Grove on the 45th, Pilot Knob down in the south part of town, Whisper Valley. I know they've had billboards. Those are all zoning negotiated agreements with the city, and then green building becomes required. So we do our inspections there, and they're doing more than what the code requires. Are green materials generally more expensive? It depends. There can be some that are more expensive. You go out and you want the latest and greatest, but that house I was showing you that was zero waste, they resourced a whole bunch of stuff from Craigslist and all around Central Texas. And so it wasn't any more expensive than other projects. Green building does give a premium on your house value. So you can include that in the MLS listing. that you did do a green building rating on the project. Don't want to leave you guys without knowing about different rebates that Austin Energy does. So just travel over to savings.austinenergy.com to check those things out. Chris gave you great links for rebates that Austin Water has. And then in the chat link, there should be a link posted so that you guys can do the survey. And we really appreciate you guys doing that. Thank you everybody for taking the survey and joining us tonight, and look forward to seeing you next week.